الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا بالقاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. Tonight is the night of Sham Ghariba, and really everything takes second place to the musibah of Imam Hussain alayhi Islam's family today. Whenever I hear the reasoning given by Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, or what people have figured out could be his reason for allowing his companions to go to Shahada first, this was not the way of Ahlul Bayt. The way of Ahlul Bayt was to be in the front. But perhaps people have said that Imam allowed it because he knew that those who remained till the very end, their torture and their musibah was greater. Whenever I hear this, I said, yes, Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, you are right. But what about Zainab? What about the ladies? And what about Imam Sajjad? With your martyrdom, delayed even as it is at Asr time, you are in Jannah, you receive from Hawz Kawthar, but the agony and the musibah of the family, it continues. There is no letting up. In fact, it's just the time of uncertainty, what we call Shab Ghariba. That means the night of strangers, people who do not belong in the land where they find themselves in dire circumstances. And we again need to use our imagination to understand the depth of uncertainty, anxiety that was in the hearts, not to mention the grief that was in the hearts of the family members, especially the elders, and the absolute confusion in the mind of the children. This is the night on which that prophecy that had been made when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam was just a toddler came to fruition. We have in hadith from Salma that one day Hussein alayhi salam was just a toddler and he was playing in her room. When Rasulullah was there, he said, "Give me my son." So she passed him over, and then she saw that there was tears in his eyes after a while, and she said, "Ya Rasulullah, may Allah never make you weep. Why are you crying?" He said, "Because Jibril Amin just came down and informed me that this child of mine will be murdered and martyred in the land of Karbala. And on top of that, we have in this hadith that he said, Jibreel has also given me some of the clay from that land." And Salma says that Rasulullah gave it to me as amana. And I used to keep it in a glass vial. And especially when Hussein came to say Khuda Hafiz to me for the last time and said, "Oh grandmother, it has become impossible for me to live in Medina, and so I leave now to go to Mecca and inshallah to Kufa." She said that, "Do you see this as a final leaving?" He said, "I think so." Salma says that every day I used to wake up and look at that sand. And if it looked normal, I would go down in sajda and say, "Ya Allah, I thank you for keeping my son safe. Oh Allah, keep my Hussein safe." But she says that on one night, before Fajr, I saw in my dream my husband, Rasulullah, with his hair disheveled and doing matam. And I said, "What puts you in this state?" And he said, Salma, they have killed my son." She said, "I woke up and looked at that vial and I saw it bubbling with red blood. And I knew that they had killed Hussein ibn Ali." This is the night that we remember, and we try to empathize with those widows and orphans of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. I always say, and I've said this before, that when one person is lost to us, we have a sense of unrealness in our lives. We keep imagining, are they there? Are they going to come through the door any moment? Can it be that they have really passed away? One person. Can you imagine Zainab and Kulthum and Farwa and the ladies? It was not just one person. It was a whole house. A whole household who were strong, vibrant, healthy that morning, today are finished, gone. What kind of thoughts were going through their head when they were thinking, you know what, I will never be able to speak to Akbar again. I will never be able to speak to Hussein again. I will never be able to speak to Qasim again. And this. The enmity and the hatred, normally it is supposed to finish with death. But the enmity that day did not finish with death. Umar ibn Sa'ad, Mal'oon, we have in hadith that afterwards he asked for volunteers. He says, I want to trample the body of Hussein. I want to break his back. Who will come forward? And several people who were in the pits of hell, they come forward and volunteer. And horses are prepared. Horses are prepared to ride over the body of Imam Hussein to break it. Can you imagine when Imam Sajjad and the rest are looking at that? Why would you do this? This is the body that Imam Hussein that was the beloved of Fatima, that Rasulullah used to kiss repeatedly. And he used to say, Al-Hasani wal-Hussein Sayyiday Shababi Ahlil Jannah. These are the apples of my eyes, they are Rayhana, they are the sweet basil of my eyes. Everything was forgotten in that hatred. And then, when someone is bereaved, what do? Huh? We go to give consolation. We go for condolation. We go there for condolences. We go there to sit with them and say, we are sorry for your loss. But no. Instead of that, we find that Umar ibn Sa'ad turns his attention to the camp of Hussein ibn Ali. And suddenly these people who are already grieving the loss of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, they find that soldiers are in the camp. That they are rushing through the camp, looting their way through. We have from Fatima Kubra, salamullahi alayha, she said that they came behind me and with the points of their spears, they were taking our hijab away from our heads. There were other men who were taking away those tabarrukat of Ahlul Bayt alayhim wasalam. They were not of value, but they were just plundering and robbing. And one of them even had tears in his eyes. And when she was asked, why are you crying? He said, I cry because it is Ahlul Bayt, but if I don't do it, others will do it. These are the kind of people who were there. On top of that, Humayd ibn Muslim says that for some reason, Umar ibn Sa'ad, to increase the torment for them, decided to burn these tents. This is the level of hatred and enmity, unprecedented in Islam. This was not the way of Rasulullah, even with his enemies, let alone Muslims on Muslims. He gives the command that these women that are taking shelter in there, the only way to rush them through is to burn them. And so the tents were set on fire, and as tents caught fire, women moved from one tent to another, one tent to another. In the end, all the tents were on fire because Abu Abdullah al-Hussein had roped them together. They had exits and entries into each other, and they all caught fire. Hamid ibn Muslim says that I saw Zainab frantically trying to get into the fire, trying to enter the fire, and I thought, what has Zainab got in there that is so expensive, that is so costly that she's willing to give her life for it? And she said, I saw her dash in and start to drag out a small bed in which there was the unconscious Abid alayhi salam. She said to Imam Sajjad, in a hadith from Imam Bakr alayhi salam, that my aunt asked my father, that Sajjad, if you command we should stay in the tents, we stay in the tents and let us burn. He said, no, it is wajib for us to try to protect our life. And in this way they came out. One of the writers of Maqtal says that the women poured out of the tents the way when a tasbih breaks, that all the beads, they just dissipate. In this way we saw Ahlul Bayt come into the open. Women who had never been seen before, women who had not been known before, suddenly are in front of the eyes of people. Zainab and Kulthum, they try to round up these children so the children are not lost, because in the dark, in their panic of the fire, many children ran They started to make a count. They started to make a count, the two sisters, when suddenly they realized that Sakina is missing. Bibi Zainab said to Kulthum, I don't see Sakina. They went towards the Maqtal. They were looking for her, Sakina, Sakina, and then at last they found her on a body, sleeping, but the body did not have a head. And they woke her up and said, Sakina, why do you sleep here? She said, I came out into the desert and I was crying for my father, and there was nowhere that I could see him, when suddenly from this body I heard a voice saying, Alayya, Alayya Bunayya. Come to me, my child. Come to me, Hussein is here. And this is where I fell asleep. Bibi Zainab alayhi salam gathers them all, puts them in one half burnt up tent, and then she sees some people coming. And Zainab salamullahi alayha says to them that we have nothing else. You have taken it all. But she sees that it is some women. Amongst them is Hor's wife and some other ladies. And they come and they bring food and they bring water, and they come and they sit with Zainab salamullahi alayha to give condolences for the death of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. At that time Zainab looks at Hor and says that Zainab is very ashamed in front of you, O wife of Hor. Your husband was our guest, but we could not extend to him the hospitality that we normally extend to our guests. For that I apologize, please forgive me. We could not even give him water. When she sees the water, tears come to her eyes. This is the water for which every one of the menfolk, every one of them was thirsty, could not have that water, and now the water is in front of them. She calls Sakina and she says to her, Sakina, beta, why don't you drink water? Sakina says, that why did you give me water on? He said, because you are one of the youngest, Sakina. Sakina says, younger than me was Asghar. Younger than me was Asghar. And he died without water. In the end, we have a hadith that says, from Imam Muhammad Baqir alayhi salam again, that my aunt took charge of the camp because my father was not well. And with a broken sword or broken weapon of some sort, spear, she got everybody rounded up. And she was looking after the camp to make sure that no further interruption. When she saw in a swoon, Imam Baqir said, in a dream, she fell asleep and she saw in that dream that a rider is coming towards the camp. And in that dream she says to the rider, please, the children have just slept. Don't come and interrupt us again. Don't come into the tents again. But the rider kept coming on. At that time, Zainab said to her, do not think we are helpless. Do not think that we cannot defend ourselves. And she held the animal like this. When the rider took off his niqab, she saw that it was Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And she says to him, Baba, what are you doing here? And he said, Zainab, I have come. You go to rest now. And she said to him, Baba, if you were going to come, why didn't you come when they were killing my Ali Akbar? Why didn't you come when they were cutting the arms of Abbas? Because he was calling out to you then. Imam says to her, sleep now. Ali will look after this camp. Ala la'atullahi ala al-qawmi al-zalim. Wa saya'alamu alladhina zalamu ayya munqalabin. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Matam Hussein alayhi salam. Ya Hussein. Ya Hussein.